In the spring of 1453, as dawn broke over the narrow straits where Europe meets Asia, the ancient city of Constantinople stood as it had for more than 1,000 years, battered by time yet defiant in spirit, its massive walls rising above the Sea of Marmara and the Golden Horn like the last guardians of a fading world. Founded by Emperor Constantine the Great in the 4th century as the new capital of the Roman Empire, Constantinople had become the heart of Byzantine civilization, a center of Orthodox Christianity, classical learning, and imperial tradition. By the 15th century, however, the once mighty empire had been reduced to little more than the city itself and a handful of surrounding territories, isolated, impoverished, and surrounded by a rising power that would soon bring its long history to an end. That power was the Ottoman Empire, led by a young and ambitious ruler named Mehmed II, who at just 21 years old was determined to accomplish what generations of his predecessors had failed to do: capture Constantinople and make it the capital of his expanding realm. For centuries, the city had been considered nearly impregnable. Its land defenses, the Theodosian Walls, stretched for miles and consisted of multiple layers of stone fortifications, towers, and moats that had withstood countless sieges since the 5th century. From the sea, Constantinople was protected by natural barriers and by the Golden Horn, a deep harbor sealed off by a massive iron chain that prevented enemy ships from entering. These defenses, combined with the city's strategic location and symbolic importance, had preserved Byzantine independence long after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Yet by 1453, the balance of power had shifted. The Ottomans controlled nearly all the territory surrounding the city, cutting off land routes and placing Constantinople under constant pressure. While Europe watched with concern, little meaningful help arrived, as Western kingdoms were divided by their own conflicts and by religious tensions between Catholic and Orthodox Christianity. Mehmed II had prepared meticulously for the siege. Understanding that the walls which had protected Constantinople for a millennium could no longer be overcome by traditional means, he embraced new technology that was transforming warfare: gunpowder artillery. He employed a Hungarian engineer named Orban to construct massive cannons, including one so large it required dozens of oxen and hundreds of men to transport. These guns were capable of firing enormous stone projectiles that shattered walls previously considered unbreakable. By early April, Mehmed had assembled an army estimated at between 60,000 and 80,000 soldiers, including elite Janissary infantry, supported by a powerful fleet. Inside the city, Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos could muster only around 7,000 to 8,000 defenders, including a small number of foreign volunteers, most notably the Genoese commander Giovanni Giustiniani, who played a crucial role in organizing the defense. The siege began on April 6, 1453, as Ottoman cannons opened fire on the land walls. Day after day, the thunder of artillery echoed across the plains, shaking the ancient stones and signaling a new era of warfare. Each breach was met with desperate repairs, as defenders worked through the night to rebuild walls with earth, timber, and whatever materials they could find. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the Byzantines resisted fiercely, driven by the knowledge that there would be no retreat. Emperor Constantine himself took part in the defense, moving along the walls, encouraging his soldiers, and sharing in their exhaustion and danger. For the people of Constantinople, the siege was not only a military struggle, but a spiritual ordeal, marked by prayers, processions, and a deep sense that they were witnessing the final chapter of their civilization. At sea, the Ottomans initially faced setbacks. The chain across the Golden Horn successfully prevented their fleet from attacking the weaker northern walls, and a small Christian convoy managed to break through the Ottoman blockade, boosting morale within the city. In response, Mehmed devised one of the most daring maneuvers of the entire siege. In a remarkable feat of engineering and logistics, he ordered dozens of ships to be hauled overland on grease logs, bypassing the chain and launching them directly into the Golden Horn. This maneuver, completed in late April, shocked the defenders, and allowed the Ottomans to attack the city from multiple directions, stretching the already thin Byzantine defenses even further. As weeks passed, conditions inside Constantinople worsened. Food supplies dwindled, fatigue set in, and hope of Western reinforcements faded. Diplomatic efforts failed, as Mehmed offered the emperor safe passage and lenient terms in exchange for surrender, offers that Constantine XI refused. For the Byzantine ruler, surrendering the city founded by Constantine the Great was unthinkable. He chose instead to stand with his people, fully aware that defeat would likely mean death. On the night of May 28th, the city prepared for what many believed would be its final day. A last Christian service was held in the great cathedral of Hagia Sophia, where Catholics and Orthodox worshiped together despite centuries of division, united by the imminent threat. According to contemporary accounts, the emperor asked forgiveness from his nobles and soldiers, then took his place on the walls, ready to face the coming assault. In the early hours of May 29th, 1453, Mehmed II launched a final all-out attack. Waves of Ottoman troops surged toward the walls under the cover of darkness and artillery fire. The first assaults were repelled, but each wave weakened the defenders further. At a critical moment, Giovanni Giustiniani was severely wounded and forced to withdraw from the front lines, a blow that caused panic among the troops he commanded. Soon after, a small gate known as the Kirka Porta was reportedly left open or breached, allowing Ottoman soldiers to enter the city. As the Ottomans poured through the defenses, resistance collapsed. Emperor Constantine XI was last seen fighting near the walls, having removed his imperial insignia so as not to be recognized. His body was never conclusively identified, but his death marked the end of the Byzantine imperial line and the fall of Constantinople. By midday, the city was firmly in Ottoman hands. As was customary after a successful siege, Mehmed allowed his troops a limited period of plunder, though he soon moved to restore order. Entering Constantinople, he is said to have been struck by both its grandeur and its devastation. One of his first acts was to ride to Hagia Sophia, where he ordered the great church converted into a mosque, symbolizing the transfer of power and the beginning of a new chapter in the city's history. Constantinople would soon be known as Istanbul, the capital of the Ottoman Empire and one of the most important cities in the Islamic world. Mehmed II adopted the title of Kaisar-i Rome, Caesar of Rome, presenting himself as the rightful successor to the Roman emperors whose legacy he had claimed. The fall of Constantinople sent shockwaves across Europe and beyond. For many Christians, it was seen as a catastrophe, a divine punishment, or the fulfillment of apocalyptic prophecy. Refugees fled westward, carrying with them ancient Greek manuscripts and classical knowledge that would help fuel the Renaissance. Trade routes between Europe and Asia were disrupted, contributing to the search for new sea routes and, eventually, to the age of exploration. For the Ottoman Empire, the conquest marked a turning point, transforming it into a dominant imperial power that would control much of southeastern Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa for centuries. Istanbul became a thriving, multicultural capital, where Islamic, Christian, and Jewish communities lived under Ottoman rule, reshaping the political and cultural landscape of the region. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 is often cited as the symbolic end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the early modern era. It demonstrated the decisive impact of gunpowder on warfare, rendering medieval fortifications obsolete and forcing states to rethink military strategy. It marked the final collapse of the Eastern Roman Empire, an institution that had preserved Roman law, administration, and culture long after the fall of Rome itself. Above all, it stands as a moment when the course of history changed direction, as an ancient world gave way to a new order. The echoes of that moment still resonate today, in the city that continues to bridge continents and civilizations, bearing the layered legacy of Rome, Byzantium, and the Ottoman Empire, and reminding the world that even the mightiest walls cannot hold forever against the tides of time.